Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curry and Mitchell, from Watts to Brooklyn, and dare I say, all points in between and beyond. I'm Sheldon Curry, and I'm here with my longtime good friend James Mitchell, and we're going to do a little Baseball Hall of Fame discussion about the upcoming Veterans Committee elections happening in just a couple of days in December, and then third week in January, the Baseball Writers election. So what's up, good brother? What's up?
Everything's good. Everything's good. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah. We're way overdue to be doing this.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be a lot more regular in 2026.
Absolutely.
With this and some other platforms, hopefully.
Absolutely.
So the Veterans Committee, and let me be clear for all that's listening, that's the general term that's been used for the whole history of the committee that's been electing so-called old-time ball players or ball players that no longer can be considered by the so-called modern committee, which is the baseball writers. Now, the technical name for this year is the Contemporary, I think, Baseball Era Committee, and it's going to try to induct a player or two that had his greatest contribution from 1980 forward, and that have been, I believe, retired for at least 15 years. So we got a roster of 8 players. I actually don't have the list in front of me, so you can help me, but it's headlined by Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Gary Sheffield. I guess also they have Fernando Valenzuela, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, and then you have the Del Murphy and Don Mattingly sentiment twins, and we'll get into that during the discussion. So you have any opening remarks or anything you want? We can go in any direction because we're going to cover all the bases.
Well, this time of year when they start these deliberations for the Hall of Fame, it just gets my anger up all over again and makes me feel frustrated and disgusted about the process, about the racism and their voting. And this makes me think about all the black ball players who are constantly overlooked, who are overlooked on the regular ballot and overlooked in this new process where they only select people every 3 years or so, and then you fall off the list for all kind of reasons, kind of foolishness to keep eliminating these well-deserving players. It just gets my anger up more than anything else, and I expect the worst to come out of the voting, which usually seems to happen, even though in the last couple of years a few guys have gotten in after they've died, unfortunately. But so I'm frustrated about it and angry. I'm looking forward to see what happens. I hope I can be pleasantly surprised, but I doubt that I will be.
Yeah, I share your sentiments. Annually for so many years, there's been a lot of frustration and dissatisfaction. It has been a clear disproportional adverse impact in terms of lack of inducting black ball players, deserving black ball players. And just for the folks out there, from 1999 to 2019, in a 20-year period, there were no black major league players inducted by the Veterans Committee in that time frame. And so it just, and like you said, there's been some slight improvement in recent years, but given the whole history of it, it just makes you believe that we're heading back that way. And one of the ways you can see that are some of the names that are not on the ballot.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know if you want to go there right now, but it just makes me believe we're getting ready to head into another dearth period where there's little or no deserving black ball players elected, while players who you could argue of a different hue, who did not have the careers of some of the guys even omitted from the ballot, are getting opportunities, and some will get elected.
That's true. And immediately people come to mind. I look at the ballot as it stands now, like guys like Don Mattingly, who's outstanding ball player, take nothing from his career. He's a really great ball player with the Yankees. But I compare him to a guy like Al Oliver. Now, Al Oliver's a guy who probably didn't stay on the regular ballot much, didn't get any support on the regular voting process. And now nobody ever thinks about him. But they, you hear this hue and cry every year about Don Mattingly, Don Mattingly, Don Mattingly. He's like the darling of these sports writers, and of course the New York guys are pushing for him because he's a Yankee. But you compare the two, and if Don Mattingly's going to get in there, Al Oliver should have been in, and he should have been in on the regular ballot, in my opinion. But things like that constantly happen year after year, and that's what fills me such frustration and a lack of hope for any kind of fairness for any of these guys. And just makes me go back to think all the great ball players, as we've talked about, as you talk about ad nauseum in your book, the fabulous book that you wrote exposing this crap, the Vader Pensons, the Maury Wills, the Vita Blues, the Louis Tiants, all these guys who will probably never get in because of the way the voting is set up. They're only considered now every 3 years or so, and as the voting pool changes, you get these younger and younger predominantly white voters. They're not going to look at these guys and think about them. I've never even heard of them, probably. And that just angers me and frustrates me to no end. But it's just consistent with what goes on a regular basis and everything else in this country.
Yeah, it's as we like to say, it's a microcosm of greater American society.
Absolutely.
When it comes to that unfairness, some of the names you mentioned are people more than worthy. But I think a Tiant is the most recent example of how egregious and unfair this is.
Right.
He died, I guess, a year or two ago. He was on a number of ballots, and then he was left off, even though he was on the last ballot, but he was left off a ballot or two. And he seemed to be the poster child for this second attempt at restricting folk for forever if you don't get a certain number of votes. And the reason why I bring that up, they've made so many changes in the last few years you can't keep up. But about 4 or 5 years ago, the Hall of Fame came up with this restriction that if you didn't get a certain number of votes, I think in consecutive elections, then you could never be considered again, which is crazy. And it's also interesting that you would say that now after all these guys who had over 100, who retired over 100 years ago, and some of them who got in the Hall of Fame in recent years, if you had that in play, they would never have gotten an opportunity. And of course, all of them are white players. And so, it's egregious, and people will say, well, it's not racial, but it has to be because you put these things in place that disproportionately affect black players. Yeah, it'll affect some white players, but, generally all the so-called deserving white players get in.
Exactly.
And so I look at Tiant. So I bring that up. I kind of interrupted my point. So they put that in place. I know not that I'm trying to promote me, but I wrote about it in the book. And then they switched it, took it out, and then within a couple of years, they put another restriction in. And I think they say that you have to get I don't know if it's 5 votes. And then if you get less than 5, you can't be on the next election. So let's say if you get less than 5 in this election, then in 2028 December, you can't be on that ballot. Then you can't even be considered. Then you can come back in 2031. And if on that ballot you don't get 5, you can never be considered again. And I just think that's, when you, and what people would say, well, isn't that fair at some point? They didn't get in by the baseball writers. They didn't get in Veterans Committee at some point. But the issue is nobody addresses the biases that lead to that.
Exactly.
And I look at Louis Tiant because if you look at Louis Tiant versus a whole bunch of guys in the Hall of Fame, but the last Jim Cott, and again, I'm going to say this for everybody. I'm not anti anybody getting in, good for you. But unfortunately, these discussions make you scrutinize those who have gotten in. And so it looks like we might be against them. But like you said about Mattingly, he was a hell of a ball player, but I like to say it this way. Certain players shouldn't get in before certain other players. And that was my posture with Jim Cott and Tiant because they were pretty much contemporaries. Cott started his career a little sooner than Tiant, but they were like I think they were on the same number of baseball writers ballots, like 14. They were on a number of Veterans Committee ballots together. And Tiant kept getting the short end of the stick. But there's no way no one could say Jim Cott was a better pitcher than Louis Tiant. The only thing Cott had going for him over Tiant was longevity and his Gold Gloves. That's it. And so my point is, Louis Tiant, to your, and I'm reinforcing your point in a long-winded way. You know, Tiant, he probably will never get in. No. And Jim Cott, you know, good for Jim Cott. He's in. And he's still alive to, you know, and that's a whole nother issue. So
enjoy the fruits of that.
Enjoy the fruits of that. So, yeah, man, this is but anyway, we can get back because, you know, we can spend the next 2 hours talking about this mess.
That's true.
Well, let's go back to these 8 players, and not that we got to get real specific about all 8, but let me start off with my posture, and then I'll let you jump in. Of the 8 players, and I'll just summarize them again: Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela. Of the 8, we know that Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Gary Sheffield will likely not get support because of their rumored associations with performance-enhancing drugs.
Absolutely.
And even though without that they would all be first ballot Hall of Famers, with Bonds being in the conversations one of the top 3 or 4 players in the history of the game, and with Clemens being one of the top 8 or 10 pitchers in the history of the game, and Sheffield being clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you want to add to that. And well, go ahead if you want to add something to that before I make my next point with the other 5 general.
Of the 3 of them, I guess the one that has the biggest case, as far as we know, things we read in the papers about that old steroid era, is Sheffield. For me, Sheffield seems to be the one who's getting labeled with this with the least amount of any type of indication that he really did something wrong. That's just my opinion, I guess, from what I remember reading and hearing. Now, I may be wrong about that, but I think that's kind of accurate.
No, you're not wrong at all. I agree. I think all I've ever heard was that he worked out with Bonds, which obviously that's some BS.
Right.
But the only reason and let me be clear, I'm glad you brought that up. The only reason I'm bringing it up in this general sense about, I said rumored PED, because... But I know Sheffield has been tainted by it. That's the only reason I'm not saying. But you're absolutely right. Of the 3 of them, he has far less, whatever you want to call it, evidence or suspicions than the other 2. But you know, while we're there, what's your posture on folks, rumored or otherwise, relative to the Hall of Fame? PED guys, so-called PED guys.
I would say take the years when they're alleged to have used that stuff and eliminate their stats and look at their overall body of work without those years and see if they were eligible for the Hall of Fame or not. And I think if you did that, Barry Bonds would still be a Hall of Famer, and probably Roger Clemens.
Yeah, and Clemens would be too. He would.
Right.
He would.
Know, so that's what I would say. You know, that's such a, you know, it was cheating. If you did it, no question about that. And if they couldn't prove that Bonds did it, evidently, I think they did prove that Clemens used some. But you know, if it's that egregious and you want to eliminate that stuff, take the years out that they allegedly have used it, and look at them that way, and judge them on that. I would say. Yeah,
I think your point's a good one. I think there are other people who have held that view, but then there are others who say, well, no, once you cheat, you should be eliminated. But then the issue, even though I know at the time people were doing all the horrendous things they've done through the history of the game, and you know, they would say, well, if people had known this and that, so-and-so wouldn't be in, but that's not true. People knew Ty Cobb was a racist, and, you know, one of the great players of his era, and so it didn't affect him. You had a number of people that people knew who they were. You know, George Weiss, the general manager of the Yankees, you know, openly said he didn't want black ball players. So by the time he was put in Cooperstown in the 70s, they knew he had a racist past. It didn't matter. The reason why I'm bringing this up is going to your point that if a player like Bonds, like Clemens, clearly if their career had stopped right there at the point where they're rumored or reputed to start using PEDs, both of them would have been first ballot Hall of Famers. So then when you look at, if you want to say using PEDs is cheating and a character issue, you can't use the character issue because you never use it with anybody else.
Exactly.
So I think your points are well taken. I'm going to take it a step further. I wasn't here a few years ago, and maybe because maybe it's a product as I've gotten older, and a lot of the icons that I love have gone on. Right. And I don't know that should matter, but I know the Frank Robinsons and the Henry Aarons, they made their comments here and there. They didn't beat it to death, but I understood their viewpoints. They felt like they did it so-called clean or whatever you want to call it. Right. And so, if they had these same opportunities for these PEDs and they used them, you don't know what their numbers would have looked like.
That's true. That's true.
So I always kind of said, yeah. But as the thing where I'm changing, in addition to maybe because a lot of them are not around anymore, which shouldn't change how I feel. But what's really started changing for me is the rumors of some guys who've gotten in, are rumored to have had PED associations, and it didn't derail them. You hear that with Mike Piazza, you hear that with Ivan Rodriguez, right. and so what it does for me, not to denigrate those two, and then you hear this whole notion that there's a lot of people who in the know said that the majority of the players were using it. And when you hear that, then that's when you start saying, man, I know certain people got caught, some people didn't. Some rumors or evidence was stronger than others. But it almost makes you just wonder, should you just, because what they did on the field. And I'll give you a good example why I might be moving in that direction. I saw Tim Salmon a few years ago, and I saw Richard Aurelio recently, who was a teammate of Barry Bonds for a short period of time. Right. And they both said they ain't never seen nothing like it. And his ability, and they were talking about his scientific approach, right, and all those things. We understand the advantages you get physically, but I don't know, man. I've gotten to a point where I guess I'm just not because I was a little more hardcore about 20 years ago than I am today. But I guess what I'm really saying is it wouldn't bother me as much as it might have bothered me years ago, because it just looks like so many guys did it. And the last thing I'll say on that, and I guess Fred McGriff was the first, in quotations, I hate to say it this way, beneficiary, because he wasn't ever associated with PEDs, and he finally got in, because people used to say, well, if you're going to penalize the guys who reportedly did it or actually tested and did it, then how are you leaving the Fred McGriffs? Because people say, well, his numbers, they're dwarfed by the Alex Rodriguez's of the world. But then, wait a minute.
Right, I know.
So the next guy up is a guy on this ballot, Carlos Delgado.
That's right.
He's not reported to ever use any PEDs.
Exactly.
And I think his argument is even stronger for those who always are suspicious, because his career ended because of his hip.
Right.
He had all those hip surgeries. Right. And he tried to, I think he played winter ball, whatever, and he just never could get back, and he had to retire. Mm-hmm. You would think if he was using PEDs or started using, he might have had a better opportunity to come back.
That's true.
So anyway, I know what I just said ain't scientific, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense to me anyway. It does.
And so and Delgado with those, he had some fantastic statistics. I think I saw something recently where he had they're always talking about these peak periods. That's another thing about these folks in these analytics. Right. 5-year peaks, 7-year peaks. And so a guy could, that's why they try to promote Dale Murphy. Well, his 5-year peak. It was like, wait a minute, it's more than 5 years. I've never been a peak guy. But, they talk that, well, here's a peak for you. Carlos Delgado over a 12-year period averaged 37 home runs and 113 RBIs.
Right. Right.
Now you want to talk about a peak.
What's about a peak? That's a hell of a peak, right? You're right.
So anyway, man.
I know.
So yeah, go ahead, man. I go ahead.
No, he's another argument when you talk about guys like Mattingly. All right, if Mattingly, why not call us Delgado?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you say, his career ended early because of injuries, and then takes the guys like this another, off the subject position-wise, Albert Belle, the perfect example. Guy played like 12 years. He had to leave because of a degenerative hip problem.
Yep, he did.
And he was tremendous. Nobody put up numbers like he was putting up.
Oh, super tremendous numbers.
Super tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, it just.
This guy he had 381 home runs. I just saw this today and it blew my mind. Reminded me of a Stan Musial statistic. But anyway, he had 381 home runs. He had 190 at his home ballpark and 191 on the road. That doesn't show you what a fearsome guy this was. It didn't matter where he played. He played at the highest level. And Stan Musial was something like that. He had I think it was 3,000, like 1,500 at home, 1,500 on the road, some crazy statistic like that. Musial was like that. But, and this guy's not even considered for the Hall of Fame. Anybody mention Albert Belle, he'll never get in. Guys like that. And the whole process of this, every 3 years or every how many years you have to wait, it doesn't make any sense because you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. There's no reason why these older guys shouldn't have an opportunity to get in every year like everybody else. And the foolishness of limiting it to 5 guys at a time and all this crap is just these artificial barriers that they create. And I think they create them purposely to keep the guys that we're talking about out of consideration.
Yeah, that's how they do it. They come up with processes that they try to claim have a certain aim, a certain objectivity that's neutral. But this is how they do it because and I said in the introduction we're going to go kind of hit this in different ways. Mm. Albert Belle, and I need to call up his page. I know he played 12 seasons. And if you look at his overall numbers, he drove in over 1,200 runs. So you say, that's 100 RBIs. That's a hell of a career. Right. But I do recall his first 2 years in Cleveland was cups of coffee. Yeah. So them 1,200 RBIs came in 10 seasons.
Really?
I mean.
Really?
And I think he drove in 100 runs like the last 8 or 9 years of his career. I mean, he has numbers that are like, if you think about it, you could make an argument from a run production standpoint, and he was a good average hitter. There's very few players in the history of the game had 10 years. That's what I can't stand it. But there's no way he's not a Hall of Famer. Zero.
Exactly.
Zero.
He gets no consideration.
Zero.
Whatsoever, and never will.
Zero, man.
I know.
It is a joke. And so I bet you if I looked at Dale Murphy's career numbers, I'll bet you any money that Albert Belle probably had almost as many homers and RBIs and probably 2,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 fewer at bats. I'll bet you any money.
Oh, no question.
But Dale Murphy was everybody's darling.
Right.
And and he people love him, and that's what I mean, the sentiment factor.
Right. Oh yeah.
And
I think Murphy had like 17 more home runs than Albert Belle.
Okay, 17.
He had 398 and Belle at 381.
You hit my point. And I bet you, bet you Murphy had at least 2,000 more at bats than him. I'll bet any money.
Easily.
So how do you justify it?
Right. You can't.
And we know in like batting average, on base, slugging, Murphy ain't even in the category.
No, not at all.
And so people say, well, the difference is Dale Murphy won 2 MVPs and he won, 3 or 4 Gold Gloves, and Belle wasn't considered a great defensive player and never won MVP. Well, let's go to the MVP. Mm-hmm. I know Belle finished top 5 at least 3 or 4 times, and we all know that the bias against Belle was even then because the writers didn't like him.
Exactly.
So that's why when they come up with this stuff, we saw it last year in football with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
There you go.
Lamar should, by all measures, should have won his 3rd MVP.
Right.
The narrative was, Josh Allen's doing more with less, and then it got even ridiculous where he deserves one.
He deserves one, right.
So when you get into historical, let's just say for sake of argument, neither one wins another MVP in football. So when they start talking about Josh, and not even against Lamar, against other, Josh got an MVP and so-and-so didn't. And, or Lamar got 2, but he don't have the 4 that so-and-so got.
There you go.
And this is the same with Albert Belle. He has no MVPs. So that gives Murphy, now when they get on these ballots, that people use that.
Right.
And it's ridiculous, it's just.
It is.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought up Belle, man. That's just.
Yeah, see, that's got something that's driving me crazy.
Yeah, that's just egregious,
so many guys
man.
in that category, who just get ignored. And all the people you wrote about in your book, the Reggie Smiths. Reggie Smith will never get in the damn Hall of Fame.
No.
Never.
And what's sad about, and not to go in that direction, but the sad thing about Reggie Smith is all these analytic people who like WAR and OPS plus, Reggie Smith is right there with a lot of these guys, or better.
Right.
He got a better OPS, way better OPS plus and WAR than Don Mattingly and Dale Murphy, since they're on the ballot. Now, of course, Smith can't be on this ballot, but he won't get on. He's never been on the Veterans Committee ballot.
No, he never will get on. He never will. Nobody
So
thinks about Reggie Smith.
it just.
Who thinks about him? You ever hear anybody talk about him?
No.
Never.
Every now and then you'll run across somebody, the rare astute person that will talk about him, about how good he was.
Right.
But most people, they get into, this is what the counting stats.
Right.
He didn't have the counting stats.
Right.
Well, he had 2,000 hits. He had over 300 homers. And he was 7-time All-Star. Reggie Smith was a ball player.
Hell yeah.
Played in 4 World Series, got a World Title. All the things that would be praised for everybody else.
Right.
Oh, he don't have the counting stats.
Right.
Well, neither does Don Mattingly.
Right.
I mean, hey.
Yeah.
I mean,
all these halls of fame and all these national awards in this country are full of crap. Everything else in this country is based on racism. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's the truth.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk about it.
Combination of racism and ignorance.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys, these writers are writing now, new generation of writers, they don't know anything about these guys. They're not interested enough to find out about it. Right.
And
they just fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and you're right. And then what they do is they just follow the typical talking points,
exactly.
Parroting what other people say.
Exactly.
And
that's some 30-year-old writer who's voting now. What the hell does he know about Louis Tiant?
Yeah.
No, nothing really. It's something you might have read somewhere or something. But if you're not curious enough to really dig into it, you won't know anything. And that's because a lot of these guys aren't. And they come with their biases and everything else. And here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Now, I want to go back to Mattingly and Murphy about this sentiment now.
Right.
And again, I'm going to say this. My thing is, for all that listens, I'm not anti any of these guys, but I'm pro other people, and I like to see some objectivity and fairness.
There you go.
I would be shocked if Don Mattingly doesn't get in, because that's all we've been hearing the last 4 or 5 months.
Me too. Exactly.
Oh, Don Mattingly. Oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, Don Mattingly. That's the end all be all.
Exactly.
And I think that sentiment might help Murphy. Now, I you said it the other day when we were talking. You wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't either. But if they get that egregious, man, wow. But we saw it before with Jack Morris and Alan Trammell when they left Lou Whitaker off the ballot. So I should not be,
Right. What kind of traps in there? And now here's another guy, Lou Whitaker.
Could have been on this ballot.
When is he going to be considered again?
I know.
No.
Yeah. No Belle, no Whitaker, no Willie Randolph.
No Willie Randolph.
On this ballot. None of these guys are on this ballot, man.
That's right. I bet Willie Randolph probably didn't last on the regular ballot, more than the minimum amount of years.
Another one not on this ballot is Kenny Lofton.
Right.
One of the greatest leadoff hitters in the history of the game.
Yeah, he's going to drop off this year. Yeah.
And what this really speaks to, and you said it very well about, they create these processes to be able to execute this plan that they have to limit these guys. Limitations that never were placed through the whole history of the game, when the overwhelming majority, first when it was all white, and then the overwhelming majority of people, the critical mass was still white. But now that's changed over the last 40 or 50 years, with these so-called second and third chances, will, a lot of them will accrue to black people. They keep making all these changes.
There you go.
And so, like this notion of 8-player ballots instead of 10.
Right.
It's crazy to me.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean,
make any sense at all.
And even though, we want to see people get in, but hell, I've heard people talk about what a honor it is to be on a baseball writer's ballot and have one vote.
Right.
So why not put 2 more guys if you got to do the 10? I mean, at the maximum, because that's what they've been doing for a while now. Why can't you just keep 10 people? At least give 2 more people an opportunity. And then they went from the selectors or the people who vote. Now it went from 4 to 3. That's crazy.
I do. It is. It really is.
That's crazy.
Doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, I heard somebody say it best on one of those talk shows earlier in the week. I think it was. The guy said, "You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not."
No, I agree with that. It
should be able to, if it was 20 guys that eligible to get in, they should get in.
I agree with that.
Because it's absurd. And I thought we were talking a few days ago, and I gave the example of, so they limited to 5 guys can get in. So if you get Aaron, Mays, Mantle, DiMaggio, Ruth, Gehrig, Ty Cobb, Roy Campanella, Yogi Berra come out the same year, eligible the same year, you're going to eliminate some guys because you can only get 5?
Yeah, and that's what they do, though. What sense
does that make, though?
That's what they've done on the baseball writers' ballot, but at least they could vote for 10 people.
I know, but I'm just saying that's how absurd this stuff is.
This thing is absurd, man.
It's
absurd, man. If you got a 10-player veterans ballot, why can't you, if you deemed it, why can't you vote for all 10? Now, we know why. We know why.
Exactly.
Because we know why, but it just shows you how and then that on top of the every 3 years.
Yeah, there you
go. And here from a number standpoint, even before we get in the race, there are more teams in Major League Baseball today than there were before 1980.
Right.
So by definition, there are more players.
There you go.
So why would you limit it further?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
But they know that, they're going to take care, they're going to take care of the white guys through the veterans and the minor. They always do.
Right.
And so now it's like these other guys are battling to get in here. And then they have to, and then the way, like we've seen Maury Will, he's still not in. Louis Tiant still not in. Guys like that. Dick Allen died before he got in.
Right.
Minnie Monoso died before he got in.
Right. Dave Parker died before then. You got it. It just, even some of the, Ron Santo died before he got in. It just, this thing is just ridiculous, man. It is.
And this whole notion of we have the best Hall of Fame of all the halls, and we're small hall. It has never been a small hall.
No, not true at all.
Never been a small hall.
No.
And since it's never been a small hall for white folks, it cannot be a small hall for everybody else.
There you go.
And my thing is, if it was only the Hall of Famers, only people like Mays, Aaron, Mantle, Ruth, Gibson, Koufax, Walter Johnson, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
No, not at all.
But
it's not that.
There's not that.
No, you got Richie Ashburn, you don't have Vader Fence.
There you go, man.
That kind of crap.
No, you got the Lloyd Wainers and guys like that. They just, Beauty Bancrofts. These guys that they were good players, but they ain't nowhere near. And that's what just makes me want to just blow my head off.
Exactly.
Or just in anger, because a lot of those guys are not nowhere near what the guys that they've eliminated,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then, it just, I know we keep going back to the same point.
Yeah.
But
it just all goes back to the same old metric in this country. Everything that is done on a societal basis, race is a contributing factor.
Yeah.
And there's no two ways about it. This country is built on racism, thrives on racism. The inequities we have throughout the society is based on racism. The foolishness in the society, the health care, from employment, of housing, of food insecurity, all that stuff is rooted in the racist foundation of this country, and it permeates everything.
It does. It
To
does.
act like it doesn't is you're just fooling something. It's Academy Awards or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's all predicated by race. And people like to say it doesn't exist. Oh, you're overreacting, and that was 50 years ago. We had the civil rights, this or that. But the fact that black folks still have to struggle
to vote
for voting rights shows that we're not no damn citizens of this country. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
Malcolm X was right.
Yeah, man.
The only people in this country that have to have their voting rights certified every so many years, and then you're gonna tell you're a citizen. That's absurd.
It is absurd. It is absurd.
It just shows what this country's all about. It just
and all that stuff is real and life and death and
right.
So if they'll do that with that, doing what they do in Hall of Fame ain't nothing.
Right. No, but it just shows that it permeates every little thing.
It does. It does.
Like I always say to you, I know I've said it to you 1,000 times. I'm surprised when they do the right thing. That's what gets me.
Yeah, I don't
expect anything better with this country or people that run it, all these institutions. I don't expect anything better. And like I said, I'm shocked when they do the right thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. So all that said, man, and we can go on a little further. So, what's your predictions beyond the obvious?
I'm predicting on that ballot. I think Mattingly and Murphy get in.
Murphy, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna have three people, but if there is a third person, it might be Delgado because they don't really like Sheffield and because the cloud they have hanging over him. Or it could be Jeff Kent.
Yeah, could be.
I wouldn't be surprised, They might put the three of them in. I would not be surprised.
But to show you how this thing works, that's why they have to be doing some horse trading.
Mm-hmm.
If you got 16 electors and they have a maximum of 3 votes,
right,
that means there can only be a total of 48 votes max.
Right.
And you need 12 to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
So the most that could ever get in, if I'm doing this right, is 4, and that would be 4 people would have to have the same 12. 12 voters that have the same 4 players, I guess, or something like that.
Right.
Maybe there's some other ways, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but anyway, I'm going Mattingly, definite. Murphy, if he gets on the coattails of Mattingly relative to sentiment. But I just don't know how you can, good gracious, put Murphy in and not Delgado. I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, and the reason why I say that because Murphy doesn't compare to Delgado statistically.
No.
But for the things we said before, the 2 MVP awards and
he's their golden boy.
Yeah, and he's their golden. He's like everybody loves Del Murphy. Del Murphy.
Right.
And of course, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I did a little comparison of Murphy and Del Strawberry.
Mm-hmm.
And when you looked at, even though Murphy had more plate appearances and at bats,
right.
but outside of batting average, which are almost the same, Strawberry gets him and all them other stats that they claim they love on base percentage, slugging, OPS plus, all that.
Sure he does.
You'll never see Strawberry on a Veterans Committee ballot.
No, not at all.
And then he'll be the victim also of this. Well, he never won an MVP. Well, he should have won the one. With all due respect to Kirk Gibson, because if you remember that year in '88. Strawberry's numbers dwarfed Kirk Gibson's.
That's right.
I think Kirk Gibson drove in 71 runs and won an MVP.
Right. How does that happen, right?
Yeah, for a power guy. How does that happen?
Right.
But they gave him that because, he led them, and he had a good year. He did. But if you look at all their big numbers. He wasn't even close. Strawberry dwarfed him, and Strawberry finished a close second in the ballot. But again, it goes back to how they use these things.
Mm-hmm.
and it just, I don't know, man. I just,
Just go back same old thing.
same old. I know it keeps drawing us back.
Races or European, primarily European men. Making these choices, and that's the choice they're going to make every time.
So you think there's a chance for Jeff Kent?
I think it's an outside chance for him. Yeah, because the major thing driving him, I think, is his home run total for second baseman.
Yeah, he has good numbers.
Yeah, he does.
He has good numbers.
The position he played.
He has good numbers. I actually, to be honest with you, and maybe it was the era he played in,
right.
I was actually surprised that he didn't get more support by the baseball writers. Given what you said, given his numbers,
That's true. That's true.
And maybe they said he was one of them guys that wasn't very likable, but usually that doesn't hurt white ball players.
Right, not nearly as much.
Not nearly as much, yeah.
No.
So I will say this, again, here we go. If they go think about Murphy and Kent, then it'll be laughable if they leave Delgado out.
Yeah.
Because even though they didn't play the same position, but still.
Right.
So
but I wouldn't be shocked by it.
No, I wouldn't, man, because
not at all. No.
It would,
nothing worse than that.
Yeah. But
hope for the best, though.
Yeah, it's too bad because I guess the only other thing that might end up happening here that is worth thinking about or talking about is how many votes will Bonds, Clemens, and Sheffield get. We're already assuming they're not going to get in. So do they get 7? Do they get 8?
Enough to be on the ballot. Yeah.
And then there's that, and of course that takes away from any of these other guys that we're talking about.
Right.
Or do they almost get shut out?
Right.
And we won't know if they actually get shut out because the Veterans Committee for a number of years now, if you get less than either 3 or 4 votes, they just put less than. So you don't know if they got 0 up until that whatever that number is behind less than. But if you have more than if you have 5 or 6 or 7, you'll see the number.
Right.
So that will have some bearing on the Kents, Delgados, and Murphys. I think Mattingly's gonna get in.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do.
And then I think
I'd be shocked if he didn't.
I would be too. And if they were fair about Sheffield, he should get in.
Oh heck yeah, no question.
Because like you said it very eloquently that he has less, whatever you want to call it, evidence, suspicion, rumors than the other couple that's on the ballot.
Right.
And then of course 2 people that should have been on the ballot from a statistical standpoint, Sammy Sosa and Rafael Palmeiro.
Right.
So anyway, man. Well, we haven't said much statistically about any of these guys, but I guess we don't really have to, other than what we've said about Murphy, kind of as he relates to guys like Belle and Strawberry, which really shows up. I hadn't said much about Fernando Valenzuela. You got any comments?
No, he'd be a sentimental favorite if he got any votes.
Yeah, I agree. He had a hell of a run for about 6-7 years, and he did a lot to bring. He galvanized the Hispanic community here in L.A.
Right.
But you're right. It's interesting. You made a good point there about the sentiment because if you could, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm anti-front because he was one of my favorite pitchers.
Me too.
He was so tough. I remember that game where that World Series game where he gave up 9 hits, 4 runs, and walked 7 and went all the way to beat the Yankees 5-4. See, that was old school right there.
Oh yeah.
He was like, I'm not losing this game. So I always love Fernando. But relative to career statistics, there are guys you could have put on here too. And again, every time we say this, it really gets into the limiting nature of the
exactly.
Maybe they should have 20-person veteran committee. Why not? What's the big deal?
Exactly.
And if 4 or 5 guys, like you said before, should be on there, then you're gonna vote for those 4 or 5 this time, and not the others. But you look at Doc Gooden, David Cohn, to maybe a lesser extent, Brett Saberhagen, and even Oral Hershiser, they all have numbers equal to or superior career-wise than Fernando.
Right.
And all three of them, like Fernando, won Cy Young Awards. All four of them. I guess I named four guys, I guess. Stuff like that. So I was a little surprised when I saw his name, but you said it right. He probably was a sentimental thing. He just passed late last year.
Right.
So,
and give this cultural impact, like you said, too.
Yeah, and the cultural impact. I guess if they end up going, if he found a way to get in because of that, and that in addition to his career, then that's going to open it up for some other guys, though.
Hopefully.
Well, it should. Don Newcomb.
Right.
Elston Howard.
Right.
You start talking about certain types of impact.
That's right.
When you compare, you say what they did was really good on the field, but what they did as a pioneer or ambassador or all that, so that would be interesting. So you got any more comments? I know we didn't kind of beat this up and going around about the process. Certain players.
Not really. Like I said, I just sit around and, wait for the inevitable shoe to fall so I could be pissed off again after the vote,
Yeah, I think the vote is Sunday, December 7th at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific.
Okay.
So
we'll know in a week. So
yeah. Well, we'll know in a few days. We'll know in 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. So
yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Sunday's the 7th. I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about next week. Yeah. That's right.
And I know they got elections every year, and they do. Oh, I do have to address this because this is in the same vein. Now you know that 2 out of every 3 years they do the contemporary era, 1980 since 1980. This year's the players. I think next year is I believe is the managers, the non-players. It's either next year or the year, but they rotate. Right. And then the other one is before 1980.
Right.
Now, I need to address this. I don't want to bore you, but
go ahead.
But I'd really need to address this because this really brings the crux of the matter we were talking about for process. The thing I have against giving equal shift to the non-players is that the pool of the non-players are way smaller than the pool of players. Sure. So why would you have the same ballot size, 8, every 3 years?
Right.
There's only 30, even today, there's only, 30 managers.
That's true.
So, and that's the high it's ever been. And then, of course, everybody's not a Hall of Fame type, but you know where I'm going. Then you look at the general managers, other guys that sometimes the presidents of the teams, the leagues, and then the commissioners.
Right.
I don't think they have presidents of leagues anymore. I think they don't do that anymore. But my point is, and then you have umpires. And, that's why one of the things I did in the book, I talked about the percentage of non-players getting in the Hall of Fame or the ratio relative to the players before a certain point. But since black players have had a critical mass, that number has skyrocketed.
Right.
And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why. As the available pool of deserving white players, as a percentage of what it was before, has been reduced tremendously. Now they've turned their attention to more towards umpires and executives and managers, which are almost always white.
Right.
I know we got Dusty coming up at some point. He should get in, but I just think so. So here's my thing there. I have no problem with you having a separate ballot.
Right.
I have a problem with you giving them equal shrift because that's what they're doing. So over time, while we're lamenting that people like Lou Whitaker can't even get on a ballot, or Kenny Lofton or Albert Belle, it's going to be such a smaller pool of managers, executives, whatever. So they're going to end up getting all the guys they want to get in over a number of elections because
that's very true.
Because it's fewer people.
You're right.
So if I use some modern day examples, or whether they're managing the last 15, 20 years, Lou Pinellas and the Tom Kellys.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, they're going to find their way in because it's not going to be that many competing against them, and they're going to get a chance every 3 years.
There you go. There you go.
And so that's a problem. And then the other problem I have is they've rolled everybody before 1980. Now, I understand some people say, well, all those people that played, say, before 1920, they should all be in. But you keep putting people in. So why is the era of when black people came in from Jackie to 1980, now they've all been lumped. So now that kills Wills and all Tiant, Veda Pinson, Kurt Flood, because now you've rolled them to everybody in history. And now, they put the because for a while the Negro League players weren't allowed in the so-called pre-integration era. That was how racist that was. Right. When they had the previous eras, and the 3 eras of pre-integration, 47 to 72, and then after 72, before this latest change, Negro League players can be considered. Think about that. So now the Negro League players can be considered with everybody that played before 1980 in the major leagues. Or what do you think the problem with that's going to be over a long period of time? It's going to, I know last year, I know Parker and Allen got in, and they should have gotten in. Right. And I know they had people like Vic Harris, and I think John Donaldson might have been on the ballot from the old Negro leagues. But again, here we go. Why not? Here's my thing. Why not go back and reestablish what they used to call the name is not important, but they called it the Golden Days era. Right. Players who played most of their career from 47 to 72 or anywhere like that, 75, whatever you want to do. And let them have, if you're going to still do every 3 years, to give the Willses, the Pensons, and the Floods and all them another chance, even the Ken Boyers. Right. And then why, don't lump them. And then the last thing, whether they do this one, the one I just said or not, they definitely have to have separate Negro League ballots, period.
Absolutely.
I really think they should do, if not every year, every other year, Negro League ballots for at least 25, 30 years till you get all available guys. Because this notion, that you read it in different places, well, all the guys that should be in are in now. That's bull.
Right. That's correct.
That's bull.
That is.
So anyway, that's my rant, man. That's my rant.
No, it makes sense.
That's my rant. That's my rant. So
given that it makes sense, they'll probably never do it. Given their track record. Yeah. They're doing everything they can to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it just.
They really are.
It is, and like I like to say, man, when you don't honor people appropriately, it's easier to demonize them. And the people, or the race of people they're from, because that's what we see, man.
You're right. It's true.
It just reinforces this BS about better players, better people, better this, better that.
There you go.
So. All right, man. Well, I know we've beaten this to death. We probably took it. It probably was more people listening to us. Like, they up there whining and complaining. But maybe it'll be good if they hear this because, maybe give people some things to think about. Right. And, more power to anybody that gets elected. Like I said, I've never been it's kind of what we always say about how the media disproportionately covers or takes up for certain people and then just disproportionately dogs black athletes.
Yeah, they can't leave race out.
Yeah, you get to a point where it's like you feel like you're turning your attention to the white athlete, even though he's the beneficiary. A lot of times he might be a nice guy.
Exactly.
And, a good player, but they just, the way they do it, so I think you said it at the outset. Mattingly is a good player. Murphy was a decent player. But, yeah. Same old. So, yeah. All right, man. Well, I guess we've given our predictions. We've given our laments. We've done our ranting. So we'll close this off. We'll take a brief break, and then we'll come back and we'll do, maybe not as long, a little thumbnail sketch of the baseball writers election that'll be announced. I think it's January 20th of the upcoming year. So With that, we'll take a quick break. Okay, we're back, and we're going to do a thumbnail sketch, I guess, of the baseball writers' upcoming election to see who we think may get in, not get in, and those who may be deserving. So, Jam, you want to take a first stab at that, or how you want to?
Yeah, just looking at the list, I checked off a few names of people I think are probably going to get some consideration.
Okay.
Primary consideration, in my opinion. Carlos Beltran, obviously. Andrew Jones, they should probably both get in, I think, my opinion. I think Chase Utley's going to get a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Pettit might get some.
Okay.
Felix Hernandez
okay.
get some. And I think Cole Hamels is going to get quite a bit of attention also.
Is this Hamels' first year?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, those are guys that stand up to me from the list. I don't think anybody else on the list really has much of a chance. You know, a guy like Manny Ramirez, because of the PED stuff, he's not going to get any serious consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Jimmy Rollins is going to, you know, he's going about to fall off. Is this his first year?
No, I think he has a few more years.
First year, huh?
No, I think he's been on it a few years, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure.
I think he hasn't gotten much support. I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think this last vote was very low. I looked at the list the other day. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. And the previous high percentage of votes they got, and I think his was pretty low. That's why I was thinking maybe he was either at the end or the beginning. I mean, he might fall off the list. I think you have to get at least 5% or something.
Yeah, for the baseball writers, you get, it's down to 10 maximum years, and you got to get 5% to stay on the ballot.
Yeah, but he hasn't been on 10 years yet, has he?
No, he's about 4 or 5 years.
He'll still be on, but he's gotten very little support.
Yeah.
He get like 2% of the vote or something like that. Yeah. But so the guys I named, I think, because of course the Alex Rodriguez is not going to get any, considered for the same reason as Manny Ramirez. But those are the 5 guys I think I mentioned. The guys that I think might get some significant support or might even get it in. And Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones, I think, should get in for sure. And other guys are maybes for me. Yeah.
Okay, I think I echo your sentiments. I definitely think Carlos Beltran will get in. I think he had 70% last year.
Right.
And it was only his 3rd year on the ballot. So based on just historical precedents, because it's. And there might be an exception, but almost every player that got 70% the previous year usually got in the next year.
Yeah.
And then, given that he's only been on the ballot, I think 3 years, there's not a new candidate that's going to get in. So, I think you can chalk him up. The interesting one for me, even though I think he's trending to getting in, will be Andrew Jones. Because I think last year he got around in the 60s, mid 60s.
Yeah. And I think he might make the league.
Yeah, and I think that was his 8th year, so he got this year and next year.
Right.
So he looks like he's trending. I don't know who's eligible next year, because sometimes if you have a couple of first ballot guys who are going to get in, sometimes it hurts a guy like Andrew Jones, because that's when you get those bullet ballots from some of the writers, and they'll say, well, I voted for Jones in the past, but I'm just making Willie Mays is on this ballot. I can't vote for him.
I can't vote for him.
Yeah. So that's the one's going to be interesting this year, because again, and I guess I should have been prepared and looked at who's eligible next year. But if there's not a first ballot guy next year, then if Jones doesn't get in this year, I think he'll definitely get in next year. And I definitely believe if Jones doesn't get in, he'll finish 2nd this year, which situates him historically to getting in.
Yeah.
And I think your point with Chase Utley is a good one. I think, didn't he get around 40%, something like that last year?
I think so.
I think given who's on the ballot, I think he's going to make a big jump. I think he's probably going to get somewhere around 55, maybe 60% of the vote. And if he does that, he'll be trending towards.
Right.
Because he's only been on the ballot 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So given where he is now, he's going to ultimately get in. He's a darling of these metric guys. He's a middle infielder. And I think you made a comment, Alex Rodriguez. He's not, even though he has a number of years left, he's not going to get in.
No.
And this is Manny Ramirez's last year. And so,
come up the ballot after this.
His next attempt will have to be at the Veterans Committee, and the same thing will happen with Bonds and Clemens. So
absolutely.
So now you mentioned Cole Hamels. He's kind of interesting because he's kind of like and maybe he's not the first guy, but he has career numbers that we're going to see a lot more of now.
Right.
Outside of maybe the Kershaws and guys like that. That these guys, because, they pitch fewer innings and all that, and they have fewer decisions.
Right.
And he's one of them guys, he won, 150, 160 games. And I know the other day I was looking, I think he has a WAR in the high 50s, which they love.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be
very popular with the writers.
Yeah, he is. And he pretty decent pitcher in postseason. So I'm going to be interested to see how he does over the next few years, because that could be a precursor to other guys who are pitching today, because you're going to have a lot of guys, that are going to be considered really good pitchers with career numbers like 150, 160 wins.
That's right.
And then the other one you named is kind of in the same category as Felix Hernandez.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. He's, somewhere around, 150, 160 wins.
Right.
Definitely a good player. Won a Cy Young. I don't know if Cole Hamels ever won a Cy Young, but, it's going to be interesting how the kind of support these guys get. I know Felix Hernandez got some, decent first-year support last year.
Yeah.
And that might bode well for him going forward.
Yeah, he seemed to be pretty well regarded amongst the writers and stuff. He had a good career. He was short.
He did, but like I said, him and Cole Hamels had what I call the new statistics for starting pitchers.
Right.
A lot of them going to pitch less than 3,000 innings.
Oh, yeah.
Win 150, 160 games. So I think the key is going to be where they 5, 6, 7-time All-Stars.
Right.
How they do in the postseason. That'll be a bonus if they want a Cy Young.
True.
And that's where I think that's going to go. So I think you hit it, man. Your summary was an A1, brother. I don't really have much more to add to it. It's I look at people like Torrey Hunter, who, now you were talking about falling off the ballot. I think he had 5% last year, so he's dangerously close to falling off the ballot.
Right.
And is there any first timers other than Hamels you think gonna have any kind of support?
No, not really.
Yeah,
I don't think anything significant. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't either. I was looking the other day. And there's some guys just ain't, they might not even get a vote, like a Gio Gonzalez. Matter of fact, nothing against Gio Gonzalez. I don't know how he got on this ballot. I guess you're
just automatically eligible, probably.
No. They stopped that some years ago.
Okay.
Even though I wasn't against that, because at least, you could be on the ballot. All you had to do is play 10 years. You could hit 141 in 10 years. You'd be on the ballot. But they stopped that. I don't know, I want to say about 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Now they have a screening committee. And then, and I ain't going to even get in that, because I could make a 20-minute show on some of the guys that over the years that they screened out. Would you believe Willie Davis was never on the Hall of Fame ballot?
Well, yes. Yeah.
2,600 hits, all he did.
It doesn't surprise me.
World champion, all that.
Doesn't surprise me. That's the point we were making all along,
Yeah, because matter of fact, there was a period where everybody could appear. Then there was a period where they screened.
Right.
And then they came back for a couple of years and got rid of the screening. So even when they got rid, they still, I guess at that point, I guess he wasn't eligible. I don't know why.
Right.
But if you look at Willie Davis, he never was on the Hall of Fame ballot. And I'm almost willing to bet he might be the only player in baseball history with at least 2,500 hits that didn't show up on the Hall of Fame ballot.
Right.
So, I just.
But Richie Ashburn's in the Hall of Fame.
He sure is. Well, no, but it's a good count,
I know,
man.
that's the point,
It's a good count. It's a damn
You know,
good
my
count.
guy didn't have a lot of home runs and like that.
No, you know, he's a
He
good
was
ball player.
defensively, and
He stole some bases, won a couple of batting titles, but you're right.
Right. He
You're
gets
right.
in, and like you say, Willie Davis doesn't get recognized.
Yeah,
No,
man, you know.
not at all. Not at all.
And the tragedy of that is kind of like what we've had this conversation about Tony Fernandez and Alan Trammell. Alan Trammell's in the Hall of Fame. Tony Fernandez will never see a Hall of Fame ballot.
Heck no. Nowhere in the world. Nowhere in the world.
And in their prime, who was a better ball player?
Yeah, no question.
And we know who was a better defensive player.
Right.
And Tony Fernandez carried his own offensively. Trammell might have had a little more power. That was it.
That's right.
But he wasn't a better average hitter than Fernandez, and he definitely didn't steal the bases he did, and he wasn't a defensive player.
And you never hear his name mentioned.
Right. And they tell you all about Trammell's one title with the Tigers. Well, Fernandez won a title.
Right, exactly.
You know, and see, that's what just grates me, man. We don't even have to get into, Dick Allen versus, because that's bad enough.
No.
You know, people that'll never sniff it.
That's right.
Never sniff it. And then you compare him to the guy that got in.
And there's only one factor.
Of course it is.
There's only one factor.
Of course it is.
Deny it up and down.
And people don't even think about that kind of thing, man. They just like, Tony Fernandez.
That's natural.
Yeah, it's automatic, you know.
That's right.
And so, yeah, man.
That's why I said this time of year always pisses me off.
Me too.
Think about all this stuff.
Me too.
You know? I'm happy for the guys that get some little bit of justice, but all the people who, never smell justice in this sense. It just sickens me, really, because it's just consistent with everything else, everyday life in this place we call America. So. And I'm not shocked by it. It just pisses me off over and over again.
No, I'm not shocked by it either, man. You're right. It's but it just continues to amaze me how blatant that they can be.
Right.
Or just
and get away with it.
Nobody really
raises the question.
Get away with it, man.
Mainstream, media, they don't say anything about it.
Get away with it.
On and on and on.
Business as usual. Before we conclude, I want to just, because since we're in the ranting and the lamenting mode.
Right.
Do you remember this player named Melky Cabrera? I was looking at this the other day trying to get some notes.
Yeah, he played the Yankees. And,
sure did. He won a batting title that they took from him. They never had done that in the history of the game.
Yeah.
Because he had been on steroids, and so they took his batting title and gave it to Buster Posey. Now, if you look at his career, though, and you look at some of the guys that they screened onto this year, and this would have been Melky Cabrera's first attempt.
Okay.
He should have been on this ballot.
Oh yeah. So nice numbers.
Oh, he did. And that's why. So when I saw Gio Gonzalez as a pitcher, I'm like, how you keep Melky Cabrera off the?
Right.
I mean, we know why.
Yeah.
But and then back to this whole 5% thing. And I know at some point, everybody's not a Hall of Fame. I get that, and there's only but my whole thing is, how limiting that is, and then some of these guys, if you go back in history, there've been a number of guys had 8 or 10 attempts, never got more than 5 or 6%. They end up getting in Veterans Committee because their names stayed in the spotlight in a way. And some of them even grew from very little to getting the baseball writers. And I think about people like Curtis Granderson had that one shot. Now he's not a Hall of Famer, but he had a hell of a career.
Oh, he did.
And he's Adam Jones.
Right.
Remember Adam Jones, man?
Yeah. Adam Jones was a tremendous
He was a good ball player, man. He was gone.
He was.
I think of Hanley Ramirez.
Oh, man. Yeah, I forgot about him. You're right. Hanley was awesome. That guy. Woo. Yeah. He was trying. He got dogged by the Red Sox.
Yeah, he did. But I'm just saying that these guys, they treat these guys like they 220 hitters.
Right. Exactly.
So.
It's a shame, but it's.
Anyway, so.
It's consistent.
Yeah. So.
You can say that about it.
So I guess in summary, we both agree on Beltran.
Right.
And we both think Jones has a chance.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for Andrew Jones. Really.
Yeah,
He deserves it, no question. He deserves it.
And then after that, I guess is anybody's ball game, huh?
Right, pretty much.
Yeah, because I don't actually see anybody else this year. Let me see real quick, because I was talking about Jones. Let me see if I could find real quick while we're still on next year's. Let's see if I can. When you're looking, you can't find it. Let's see if I can find next year's candidates.
Right.
Can I find that here? I should have had this already up. I thought about it after the fact. Where can I find that? Because that'll tell me a lot about Andrew Jones. Let me see. Okay, here's like an unofficial guys. Of course, on this list, I'm not going to repeat the guys on this year, but let's see some new guys. Let's see if I see anybody new. Buster Posey next year. He's going to get a lot of support. I don't think he's going to get in.
Oh, yeah.
John Lester, who I think one day might get in. It won't be next year, though. And he won 200 games, so he, even though he didn't pitch 3,000 innings. Who else on there that's worth? I don't see hardly anybody else on here. And this is one of those lists where they list everybody eligible, but all these guys are not going to be. Okay, so to my point, if Andrew Jones doesn't get in this year, he'll get in next year because I don't see. Posey might get in next year, but I don't see that being enough to keep Jones down. It's not that kind of player that, like I said, it's not like, it's Frank Robinson. And so,
Right.
So, okay. I just wanted to see what I thought might be. Yeah, so that's what's up next year. So I think what we're going to see next year now is Chase Utley.
Yeah.
Yep, we're going to see Chase Utley in there. So, yeah. All right, man. Well, we want to close this up, and unless you got something you want to add.
No. I think I've ranted enough.
You did a great job, man. I was doing all the ranting. I'll probably listen to this later and say I was a raving lunatic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to us getting back at it at the first of the year, man.
Right, absolutely.
And we'll do YouTube and hopefully a few more platforms and be a lot more regular.
Right, that'd be good.
But it was good. Get kind of going over some stuff, getting the cobwebs off.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
All right, man. Well, go on and enjoy your Raleigh good time.
I'll do my best to do the same.
All right. I
will
will likewise.
All right, brother.
And so I'm gonna curtail this and make sure this thing stops recording, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
All right, take care.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.